Model Railway, and then episode 2 of the long welded rail train. In this episode I'm going to start on the intermediate wagon and start getting the basic wagon shape drawn in, and then the time that I've got today. So first thing, let's get started with drawing the actual basic shape of the wagon. So we're going to start by creating a new sketch on the same face that we've got this canvas on, and I'm just going to draw a basic rectangle shape that's the full length of the wagon to start with. So we'll create a 2-point rectangle. So at the top here, you can either click on this top button, which automatically selects a 2-point rectangle, or do the drop down, come down to rectangle, and then select the 2-point rectangle itself. I'm going to actually start from the other end because that looks like the drawing's been skewed a little bit on that side. So we'll start at this end. I'm going to pick a point in this top corner, and I'm going to drag that all the way along the wagon here. And I'm going to try and get to the same height as the base of the wagon there. Select that sort of length. Okay, so now what we'll do is we'll give that a correct length, or define its correct length. So we're going to do define, which is D button, and then select the top length, the top edge, and PC is just being a bit laggy here. Okay, so now we've got this dimension box in here. From looking at the sketch here, we know that the length over the headstocks is 21,000 millimeters. So if we come back in here, we can do 21,000 divided by 148, which is British N gauge, and then that will give it the correct length. So look at that, the diagram's way off based on the dimensions we've added in. Okay, so the workaround that we're going to do on this is I'm going to go back and recalibrate the canvas. I'm going to change it so that we know that 21,000 is these two edges here. So we're going to remove all this lot. So if we just go back to undo, that'll take away all of that lot. We can start that bit again, and we'll come out of that sketch. So the sketch doesn't even exist now. So I'm going to come back up to the canvas, calibrate again, and this time I'm just going to go across the headstocks here, from the point there to the point there, and we'll recalibrate that as 21,000 divided by 148, which should make that picture slightly bigger. So now that should work now. Clearly what's gone wrong there is obviously these buffers might not be the right correct length for the actual wagon itself. So it's easier to recalibrate from those base headstocks there. The other thing I noticed, obviously I didn't have the correct thing, radio button check there, so I'm just going to rechange that to chassis, and then we'll start again with that sketch. So we'll put the sketch on the base face, and we'll do that 2-point rectangle again, selecting, we'll go from the top edge, and we'll draw along that edge there. So that's drawn that, we now need to define. If we do 21,000 divided by 148, it shouldn't change size at all now, everything should be sat exactly where we want it. Now you can see at the moment the line itself is still blue. That's because we've not defined it to any point. So if we turn the canvas off and we define from the top edge, which we know is as where the drawing is, down to the center point here, doesn't really matter what the distance is. I'm going to leave it exactly where it is so that the box we've just drawn is exactly over the top of the canvas. It just defines it and it's locked into position there. Okay, the next thing we need to do is work out the height here. Now, on Paul's diagram, we've got a height of 14¼ inches. So the simple, easy thing to do is using Internet Explorer, find an inch to millimeter converter. So it's 14¼ inches, gives us 361.95 millimeters. Let's say 362 to make it easy. So we can define the height here as 362 divided by 148 millimeters. Okay, so that's given us 2.45 millimeters. And you can see again it's blue because it's not defined position again relative to that center point. So we can go bottom corner there to the center point, and it's not the height this time, it's the width. So if we just stick this down the bottom, and again just leave it at whatever dimension you've got the canvas set, so there's no point moving it around. So now that we've got the basic rectangle length there, the next thing we need to add in really is the width of the wagon. So I'm going to extrude this. So we're going to select an area within inside that rectangle and extrude, and then we can rotate it round sideways, and then you can drag it out to give us the width. Now again, on the diagram that Paul's given me, the width of the wagon is 92.5 inches. So we can come into here, 92.5, 2349.5 millimeters. So we can define that as 2349.5 divided by 148, giving us a width of 15.88 millimeters. So now that we've got the basic rectangle shape, I'm going to make this wagon a lot more simplified for myself. There's no point me drawing it full size of the wagon and having to duplicate and replicate things. So the easiest thing with this, when it's symmetrical, is to split this into 4. So we're going to put some mid-planes in. If I turn the canvas off, so select construction up top here, mid-plane, and then we can add a couple of mid-planes. So we're going to click the front, the side face here, scroll down to the other side face, and that will put a plane down the middle. And then we're going to do another one, do a mid-plane from the end to the other end, and that will put one down the centre position. So we should have now 2 mid-planes within the wagon here. Okay, and then what we'll do is we can split this into 4, and then we can just draw each part individually and then mirror it across as and when needed. So if we click on the drop downs here, come into body, okay, and then we're going to split body. So the body's already selected. The first thing we're going to do is select the splitting tool, and we'll collect the mid plane there, and then that should create us 2 bodies here. Okay, and I'm going to click on body 2, and I'm going to remove, don't delete. So now we've only got half the wagon. I'm going to reduce that again into a quarter. So split body again, select that body, and then the mid plane is going to be the one that goes down longitudinally of the wagon, and click on OK. That should then split it again into 2, and I'm going to remove, I'm actually going to get rid of body 1 there, because I want to be working on the one that's next to the canvas, not the one that's away from it. So I'm going to get rid of body 1 there. I'm going to click remove again, and then we can rename that body 1 just for ease. Okay, so now we're just working on this quarter of the wagon. What we're going to try and do now is create the shape that the wagon's got here. So the belly here, and then the bit that recessor comes up for the bogies to sit under. So again, creating a new sketch at top, and we're going to select the face of the rectangle we've already drawn. And then we're just going to use the line tool, select the midpoint here, going to drag down, I'm going to let it come down to the length of the belly here, and we're going to then come sideways across to the point where it starts to go diagonally upwards, and then we're going to drag that up till this line looks parallel to the line drawing, and then we can define all these parts. So to define this one, we're going to go for 2.54, define the length of this part here, and that's 28.82, and then the length of this is 6.37. We don't need to define the angle, because as you can see it's automatically defined it by the lengths. So we can then select that part and then extrude, and extrude that to the midpoint of the wagon, making sure that it joins, and click on OK. I'll turn the canvas off so you can see what we've actually created, and I'll turn the construction planes off. So we've got that sort of shape now. Okay, let's turn the canvas back on. Next thing we need is, we've got this recess where the bogey is going. So we're going to go and create a new sketch on the face, doing the line tool, and we want to select this point initially. And we want this line here to be parallel to this one. So you can see as I drag it along, I get these two little blue lines here, and they're showing that it's a parallel line. So I can drag that along until that point on the line drawing. You've got the parallel constraints there. If you don't get those constraints come back automatically, what you can use is the parallel constraint at the top. Next thing we'll do is we'll draw a straight line across to a point where that diagonal line looks like it meets, which is about there, and then we'll bring that down until our line that we're drawing looks roughly parallel to the line drawing itself. We'll define these, so that one's going to be 22.92 millimeters, and then this one is 7.51 millimeters, and this one needs defining as well, so 3.07. So that's all now defined. We now need to remove this part, so extrude, and then drag that to the middle, and that will remove that section with a cut. Just make sure it's cut all the way through yourself, but as you select that back face, it should do that automatically. Okay, so we've now got the basic shape of the wagon there, or quarter of the wagon. If we look at the photograph of the wagon, the sides are actually slightly recessed, and we've got a lip all the way around the outside. That's relatively easy to do in Fusion. So we come back into the model, and then what we're going to do is create a sketch on this face here. And then we're going to do offset tool. Okay. Now at the moment, that tool is set for chain selection. So when we select this face, it will do a chain all the way around the whole of the wagon. The only thing with the problem with that is we actually don't need this part. So there's two things we can do. We can either do a chain selection, do that, and then remove this part on the end, or we can unclick the chain selection and then go around and collect all of the edges that we do require, like this, and then we're going to drag this inside. So at the moment it's a +1 offset. If we do -1, you can see how it comes inside. We're going to do -0.5, and that's still too big for this because that's going to end up solid. So I'm just going to reduce that slightly, so maybe 4, maybe 3. We're going to go 3.5. So this bit in here is going to be quite thin in the middle there. Need that point. So it should be 0.35 millimeters is our offset. And that's now going to give us an area here in the middle here. So if we select that and then extrude, we can then bring that inwards. And I'm just going to bring it in by 0.5 millimeters, I think. It should be -0.5 millimeters. Wondering if that's going to give us a deep enough recess. I think it probably will. And then you've got that lip around the inside of the wagon. Okay, so just looking at this, I'm not entirely happy with this gap we've got in here, because if you look at the photos, we do have a bit of detail to add in there. So what I think I'm going to do is actually increase the height of the wagon slightly to enable us to put that detail in there. So we're going to jump back in Fusion at the history here, just a little bit. I'm probably going to come all the way back to here, edit that sketch. I'm going to increase this by, I think I'm going to increase it by 0.5 mil. I'm just going to increase that to 3 millimeters in height. And then we'll work our way back through the history. We may need to go back in and change a few things. Look where that puts us with the canvas. Let's move that down slightly, which is what we expected. So that's giving us just a little bit of extra room in here. There's another 0.5 millimetre of room in there, just to enable us to put that detail in. So it's one of those things you've got to work around. Now realistically the issue is the thickness of this wouldn't be 0.3 millimetres. In real life it's actually probably going to be a lot thinner than that, but the limitations of modelling require that we do that. Okay, so now we've got this basic chassis shape. I'm going to leave this episode at this point just so it's easy enough for everyone to follow along, and it doesn't allow the videos to get too difficult and complicated. It should be pretty simple for you to get to this point, so hopefully you have. If you've got any questions, please leave a comment below. I'll come back to you any answers I can help you with. Thanks for watching.